So Anita Sarkeesian has successfully raised $200,000 just for the post-production of 5 videos about ordinary women. And you know what? That's good. It's good to see that feminists have progressed so far from burning their bras to burning their money. Fantastic. Couldn't be happier. No, Anita, quite the opposite. Far from being mad, I'm delighted that feminists think that burning their money is an effective way to show how smart feminists be. Not only that, it's put a dollar stamp on who feminists have financially elected. Financially re-elected to be their voice online. Oh, and what a voice. I mean, you'll remember how well researched her Tropes vs. Women in Video Game series was going to be.
As you might imagine, this project requires an enormous amount of research. This is an incredibly ambitious project because of the scope and scale of the research and production involved.
Well, that didn't last long now, did it? I mean, she tried very half-heartedly somewhere in the middle, about episode 3 or something, to actually back her stuff up with some references. But, you know, they ended up not showing what she claimed, or not being about how sexism is caused by video games, or just being people's opinions on blogs. Yeah, it was really hard for her to do all that research to prove that video games cause sexism, when the actual studies show they have no significant effect. And that's the woman that feminists have financially re-elected to do more feminist research. And in her latest video, she's taken stupidity to a new level.
However, there is one way in which the male and female characters are differentiated by gender, and it has to do with their movement. In Resident Evil Revelations, Jill Valentine somehow manages to wiggle her whole body while she runs. In fact, animating so many female characters in games to fit into this very gendered, sexualizing walk pattern is an example of one of the ways the male gaze manifests in video games.
I mean, most women know that they have wider hips than men, because that's where the babies come out. You know, it's that whole birthing canal thing. And yeah, most women know that, and that it gives them more of a hip sway than men.
Meanwhile, motion-captured animations for female characters often make them look as if they're walking down a runway at a fashion show in stiletto heels. In Resident Evil Revelations, Jill Valentine somehow manages to wiggle her whole body while she runs. But she still walks with an exaggerated hip sway. Meanwhile, motion-captured animations for female characters often make them look as if they're walking down a runway at a fashion show in stiletto heels.
And they tend to sit in different fashions and so forth. And Anita thinks that hip sway from women having wider hips is sexism.
In fact, animating so many female characters in games to fit into this very gendered, sexualizing walk pattern is an example of one of the ways the male gaze manifests in video games.
An even more peculiar thing is Anita wants the women in video games to sit like a man.
Watch how a male guardian sits down, taking a load off after a long, hard day fighting the forces of pure evil. It's simple, it suggests confidence. When a female character sits down, however, it's a completely different story. She sits like a delicate flower.
Because she thinks that sitting like a woman is inferior to sitting like a man. Or something. Yeah, feminism, where everything is sexist.
Everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out.
Oh dear God. I mean, so very well researched, Anita.
I've spent the last 3 years researching and examining the representations of women throughout the history of video games. For the purposes of this video, I tried to get a glimpse of Batman's rear end. I know my stuff, and I'm pretty good at what I do. For the purposes of this video, I tried to get a glimpse of Batman's rear end. As a leading expert in this field, I'm regularly sought after for media commentary on gaming topics and hired by developers and publishers to consult on upcoming titles. But it's as if his cape is a high-tech piece of Wayne Industries equipment designed to cover up his butt at all costs. My analysis is very well researched. It's double and triple checked. It has to be, given the intense level of scrutiny focused on my every word. This is one of the main reasons why each episode takes so long to produce.
I applaud those feminists who gave you $160,000 to come to the conclusion that women's naturally wider hips are because of sexism of the patriarchy or the male gaze or something. And now, after that, feminists have given her another $200,000. It's a level of public stupidity that beggars belief. It's idiocracy levels of stupidity.
So wait a minute. What you're saying is that you want us to put water On the crops.
Yes.
Water. Like out the toilet?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be out of the toilet, but yeah, that's the idea. But Brondo's got what plants crave.
It's got electrolytes.
Now, I'm no botanist, but I do know that if you put water on plants, they grow.
Well, I've never seen no plants grow out of no toilet.
Hey, that's good. You sure you ain't the smartest guy in the world?
Yeah.
Why don't we just try it, okay? And not worry about what plants crave.
Brondo's got what plants crave.
Yeah, it's got electrolytes.
What are electrolytes? Do you even know?
It's what they used to make Brondo.
Yeah, but why did they use them to make Brondo?
Because Brondo's got electrolytes.
I guess the only redeeming thing here is Anita seems to want to quit video games. You know, to cut and run from that cultural area where all the interesting influence is happening.
I think games are really where we're going. That I'm excited to see what happens as the culture grows up.
You know, she wants to cut and run from all that video games cause sexism stuff. Maybe because reality is seeping into her feminist brain that, you know, they don't cause sexism any more than they cause violence.
I am definitely not advocating that there's a one-to-one correlation at all, but I do this work because I think that media matters, right? I think that the media helps to shape our attitudes and beliefs and value systems. And so what does it say about our society when the primary means of conflict resolution in most of these major games are about violence?
Oh, fantastic. Let's just remind ourselves of the non-violent conflict resolution in Anita Sarkeesian's proposed game concept, which was, of course, was going to end all of these terrible negative gaming tropes, like violent resolution of conflicts. And while we're on the subject, how does a video stand up to the sexism of the male gaze?
The term male gaze was coined in 1975 by feminist film critic Laura Mulvey and refers to the tendency for the visual arts to assume and be structured around a presumed masculine viewer, or in this case, player. The male gaze manifests when the camera takes on a perspective of a stereotypical heterosexual man. An indisputable example of this is when the camera lingers, caresses, or pans across a woman's body. In games, it can be as simple as the in-game camera resting so that a character's butt or breasts or both are centerline.
Which brings us on to the most obvious and least observed thing about Anita's position on gaming. Did you ever look at the games she found problematic? Page after page of them. And did you ever notice that all of the games that she hated, they're all games for adults? You know, grown-ups.
Games which include a few male gigolos, 24 different non-playable female characters, and their deaths are then used by the developer's open-world environment. Novel-inspired LA Noire earns more points for sex with the courtesan, suspicious number of those achievements, not in and of itself a critical commentary. In the 2010 remake of Splatterhouse, it's implied that the protagonist suddenly shoots her, scenes scattered throughout Mafia 2. Makers have set up a series of possible scenarios, and 4 Metal Gear Solid featured novels centered on the control of games with female protagonists, typically the aim of infusing mature themes into gaming stories.
And do you notice anything about all the games that she likes? Nothing, not one single game with an adult rating.
These are some of my favorite games. And yet in some gaming circles, playing these games does not make you a real gamer.
And that's just a roll on the floor laughing my arse off moment. Anita could have saved us all so much time if she had just come out from the beginning and said that she, as a feminist who has done this $160,000 of research,
I've spent the last 3 years researching and examining the representations of women throughout the history of video games,
has come to the conclusion that feminists are just not grown up enough to play games for adults. But let me help the gaming industry out here. You know, something that you might want to give me an award or something for. About how you can immediately make all of the feminists happy. It's simple. All you got to do is modify your gaming labels. So, for instance, the gaming label might read, "This game is for grown-ups. It's not suitable for small children or feminists." Or this game won't traumatize any children over 12. Which means there's about a 5% chance that it won't traumatize Anita Sarkeesian. Indeed, it makes a lot more sense if when you hear Anita talking about games, when she says men, what she really means is adults.
It's very male-dominated.
That is, the games are very adult-dominated.
And I think with that male domination comes...
That's where that adult domination comes.
a sense of entitlement, that these games are for men by men.
That is, these games are by adults and for adults.
And that women, if they're going to participate, they need to shut up.
That is, adults really don't give a crap what children, or feminists who want to be treated like children, think about their games. Anyway, I'm going to take this moment of supreme disdain to start a crowdfunder of my own, to get a thermal camera. About 5k gets me something cool. About 30k gets me something with which I can create beauty and make really cool videos. Like, can you really hide from the infrared by covering yourself in mud?
He couldn't see me.
Anything beyond that goes to a high-speed camera, and anything beyond that goes to making metallic uranium, 'cause it'd be fun. I mean, I just sit here in despair for mankind, having watched dumbass feminists give Anita another $200,000 for that shit-eating grin of the perpetually baffled. I've watched the government give almost $500,000 in a grant to a university to work out why glaciers are sexist. And then there was that dumbass Triton Gill thing, on which, after admitting all the stuff about the micro-compressors and the super lithium battery stuff was all bullshit, and they cancelled the crowdfunder and gave their $800,000 back. They then started a new one with the exact same product, claiming that it was now going to work on liquid oxygen, which is even more bullshit than the first. And even at that, they've raised $300,000 for it. Yeah, I figure that's going to be the first bullshit crowdfunder that I'm going to debunk twice. And hell, why not? I figure I'll do a crowdfunding video to go with this, you know, in the next week or so, something along the lines of, oh, solar freaking thorium roadways.
And that they're also solar panels. They generate electricity. They generate capital. They pay for themselves, and they keep paying more because we're not going to run out of sun for like 15 billion years.
It's what's going to solve all of the world's problems. Because, you know, that seems like the sort of thing you might need a thermal camera for. Because once, just once, I'd like to see one of these crowdfunding things that wasn't complete bullshit and produces something useful for mankind.